to start with a little activity, and I'm not going to tell you what the activity is meant for yet, but we'll get into that after we've already done it. So I'm just going to explain to you, so if you guys want to get up, I'll explain to you what we're going to be doing. So what we're going to be doing is that I'm going to give you an enclosed space, which is going to be the dimensions of this carpet right here. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to walk around inside the carpet, but the catch is that you're not going to be able to stop. So as the activity goes on, I'm slowly going to close in the dimensions of the carpet so that you guys have less space to move around and you still can't stop. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so if you guys want to get into the carpet, you guys can start moving around, so you can just walk around. Just keep walking, keep walking.
Yeah. I'm walking.
Okay, so now get a little bit closer to each other. And now a little bit closer. And now a little bit closer again. And now even closer.
And now a little bit closer.
Yep. Okay, so you guys can stop now if you just want to step to the side. So, what do you guys think happened in that situation?
It got smaller.
Yeah, it got smaller.
So we ran into each other.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys started running into each other. So why exactly do you think that is? What do you think could have been one of the contributing factors to that?
The smaller space.
Yeah, that's definitely one of them. Theo? What was one of the instructions that I gave you?
We have to keep moving.
Yeah, exactly. You had to keep moving. So one of the things that I told you was that you weren't allowed to stop. So, if you think about it, one of the reasons that you guys started running into each other was because you couldn't stop.
Yeah.
So had you been able to stop, that situation could have been avoided because you wouldn't have hit each other, right?
Yeah.
So, the lesson that we're going to be doing today is going to be how to stop and start, and some situations in which stopping and starting is important so that you guys understand why it's important to know how to stop and start, because it's one of the basic fundamentals in sailing. Okay, so as we talked about earlier based on the activity, the objective for today is going to be to learn how to stop and start by moving through irons, which you guys may not know what it is yet, so we're going to go over that in a second. And the other part of the objective is going to be made aware of the importance of stopping and starting. So we're going to talk about some situations in which you need to know how to stop and start, just to highlight the importance of it so that you guys understand why we have to learn how to do it. So let's get right into it. Okay, so next we're going to get into the importance of stopping and starting, so at what times stopping and starting is going to be important. So before I get into the examples that I have, can you guys think of any situations where stopping and starting might be important?
To help prevent collisions, like
Yeah.
when you're running into each other.
Yeah, exactly. So we definitely want to avoid collisions because obviously we don't want to hurt other people or hurt ourselves or any of the equipment. Theo, can you think of anything?
Well, you're gonna need to be able to stop and start to dock.
Yeah, definitely. Can you expand on that at all?
Well, if you wanna, you gotta stop.
Yeah, so
if
when
you
you're
wanna dock the boat.
yeah, so when you're docking the boat, obviously you don't want to be going towards the dock
Well,
too
you're
fast.
gonna hit it if you
Yeah,
know how to
exactly.
stop.
So if you go towards it too fast, you might run your boat into it, and then you can damage the boat and damage the dock, which we don't want. So can you guys think of any other situations? No?
No.
No.
Okay, so I'll get into the examples that I have now. So one of the big ones is going to be stopping at control positions. So like you know, control positions is when we're out on the water and I blow a few whistles, which means that you guys all have to come towards me and we all stop together as a group so that we don't start drifting too far apart and so that I can keep an eye on you when you're closer to me. So we want to know how to stop close together in order to keep that togetherness in the group. We also want to have full boat control. So you want to be in control of the boat. You don't want the boat to be controlling you when you're on the water because that's where we get into some problems. So we want to have full boat control so that you know how to stop and start. We want to avoid dangerous situations. Like Isabella said, we don't want to be running into each other like we saw happening in the activity that we did. So collisions is a big one. We don't want to be hitting other boats because obviously the boats belong to the club and we don't want to cause any damage to them. And we definitely don't want to do any damage to ourselves because hitting other boats can hurt us too. Also in Kingston we have the ferry, as you guys know. So we want to know how to avoid the ferry because obviously we don't want to get hit by the ferry or anything like that. So we want to know how to stop so that if we see the ferry coming, we can stop a safe distance away. And we also want to know how to start in case we're right in the middle of the way of the ferry and we have to accelerate away from it in order not to get hit because the ferry can't really stop. We want to be able to dock safely like Theo said, so we don't want to do any damage to the dock or to the boats because hitting the boats into the dock can cause a lot of damage to the bow. We want to know how to stop at coach boats, so whenever we're out on the water and let's say we're doing a drill on something and I have to give you guys corrections, you want to know how to stop so that I can come up next to you and give you the proper corrections. And then one of the biggest ones is going to be man overboard situations. So if the two of you guys are partners and you're sailing together and then Theo, being so clumsy, falls out of the boat, Isabella wants to know how to stop so that he can swim to her and get into the boat, or so that she can turn around and then come up next to him and pick him up without running over him or anything. So we want to know how to safely be able to pick people up in case a situation like that happens. So those are some of the big points on the importance of stopping and starting. Another big point, which we're not going to get into too much right now, seeing as you guys aren't at a higher level, is stopping and starting during racing situations. So if you guys are racing, obviously there's a start line, and you want to know how to stop at the start line, and also how to accelerate away from the start line. So we're not going to get into that too much right now because we're still working on the basics, and we're not going to be focusing on perfecting these maneuvers yet, and especially not getting into racing, seeing as that happens at a higher level. So yeah, let's get into the actual procedures of how to stop and start. So we're going to start with stopping. So the steps go, first you have to slow down by easing the mainsail. So I'm going to put this up right here, and I'm going to demonstrate using this pole and this wire. So this is going to represent the mainsail, so the main sheet, and then this is going to be the tiller extension. So you want to slow down by easing the main, so you're going to slowly let out the mainsail a little bit, which is going to cause you to slow down because you obviously don't want to go into the stop too rushed. At the same time, you're going to push the tiller away from you. So you have the tiller in your left hand and you're going to push it towards the leeward side of the boat. So you're going to push it towards the mainsail, which is going to cause your boat to head up towards the wind, which we want to go towards the wind because that's where irons is. And we're learning how to stop through irons. So do you guys remember what irons is by any chance?
I do not.
Yeah, so irons is the position where you're facing directly into the wind. So if the wind was coming from this direction, the front of our boat would be facing into it, which means that our sails can't catch any wind because we're pointing directly at it. So that's where we're going to be at a stop position. So anyways, we're going to ease the main, we're going to push the tiller out away from us. We're going to want to be aware of our position relative to the wind because we want to know how much we have to move our boat in order to reach a stop position. Once the sails begin luffing, so the sails are going to start flapping because they're not going to be catching as much wind, that's the point where you're going to want to slowly pull the tiller back towards you so that it's in the middle of the boat so that you're not moving any farther up or any farther down. At the same time, you're going to let the sails out all the way, and you're going to get your crew, so whoever's crewing between the two of you is going to hold onto the mainsail and is going to push it out for a few seconds, which is going to cause the sail to backwind a little bit, making you come to a complete stop. Because if we were just to slow down and then face into the wind, we would come to a gradual stop. We're going to want to come to a more immediate stop. We also want the crew to shift their weight into the middle of the boat because obviously there's not going to be any pressure on the sails, so we're going to want to change our body weight to even out the boat, seeing as there's no pressure coming from the sails. We also want to make sure that we're not pointing directly into the wind. Do you guys have any idea why that might be?
No.
You guys might not have experienced this yet, but if you point directly into the wind, you don't have as much boat control because your sails can catch a little bit of wind and it'll cause you to start moving backwards, which you don't want to really be in that position because it's really hard to control your boat and it's kind of hard to get out of the position. Obviously you can't really control yourself and you might back up into somebody by mistake. So that is essentially how to stop. Okay, so we just went over stopping, so now we're going to get into how to start. So starting is essentially going to be the opposite of what we did in the stopping procedure. So again, I'll put the board down here. So again, tiller in the left hand, main sheet in the right hand. So what we're going to do to initiate the start is we're going to pull the tiller towards us, which is going to cause us to bear off. So we're going to start going away from the wind, and we can pump it a little bit to get more out of the movement. At the same time, we're also going to want to pull our sails in, so we're going to want to do hand-over-hand sheeting, which you guys have gone over earlier. So we're just going to pull it in using both of our hands as fast as we can to get the sails all the way in. and then we're going to want to bear off slightly so that our sails can catch wind again, and then we can start sailing. So that's essentially the basics of how to start. Obviously there are more steps involved if you're training at a higher level and getting into more detail of how to start more efficiently and better in racing situations, so having better accelerations and stuff. But what we're going to focus on is just getting our mainsail in nice and fast, pulling the tiller towards us, and then just getting sailing as fast as we can. So those are the basics of how to start and stop. So now you guys have learned how to stop and start, so the procedure of it, and we've also learned under what circumstances we need to stop and start and why it is important in your sailing careers. So yeah,